Look, I didn't want to say I was right, but I mean, Kane is a villain. There's no other way to put it. I've seen some people be like, I don't care that he did this. Like, Kane is so goofy and so funny and so sweet. He's the villain. So I recorded a bit of my reaction, and to be honest with you, there isn't really much I said. I didn't even say anything in my reaction other than a surprising, like, little gasp, like, oh, wow. Because the gusher was just too stunned to speak. Everything that happened, anytime I even had a thought about saying something else would happen that I could just not ignore, nor could I just pause the video and be like, okay, let's just talk about what happened right now. Like, I was just too immersed in this episode to even, like, stop and think for a second. And I guess you could take that as my little review, per se, of my experience with this episode. But instead of giving you, like, a full-blown review, let's just talk about what the fuck was this episode. It's discussion time. So I just want to say that this episode had a way of delivering what I would say the good kind of shock value, which I know maybe I've said before that shock value is not good, but like I'm saying that this is the good kind of shock value for the lack of a better term because I don't know how else to express it. Other than that, there's just so much that goes on in this episode in a good way. Just like from the bounce. You start off with this like little animation and then you get to like these like cutscenes of images of like stuff in the real life, you know. This whole segment, like, it really takes the time to just get you wondering, like, what is the first thing that is going to happen? What are we going to start off with? Are we going to continue exactly where we left off? Are we going to get a little time jump? And then out of nowhere, you're just thrown in with Kinger and Queenie, and you get other members that were in the circus. But let's just, like, go break down this episode, you know, so that way I could just give a couple of opinions I have and kind of just discuss a couple of things I've seen on the internet in the last few days since the episode came out. Let's start off. Okay, so these initial images and animation, I first just want to say I think are such a clever way to just like expose information without outright telling you what it's supposed to mean. You're just supposed to put the pieces together and it's just for you to interpret it. So here's my reading of it. This initial red ball is practically Kane. I think it's Kane. Some people like mix it around with like bubbles or something like that, but I think this is Kane who is being fed this information, which we see are the images that flash on the screen. And, you know, much of it is like a circus theme going on. And we see that the more that they're feeding this red ball, the more faults and flaws it just starts to demonstrate. And, you know, the company just decides to like lock up this project because it's just not living up to the expectation it's supposed to. And it's just not performing adequately. And so they just like discard it to the side, you know, just like throw it around, whatever. And so they decide to move on to something that's improved, like much more efficient as a program, which is the blue ball. Some people say that Bubbles is the blue ball. The red ball, which we said was Kane, or at least I think is Kane, gets jealous of this. They break free from this like little box square that they got going on and they just consume the blue ball completely, like corrupting it. I feel like this episode also just gave me like a bit more clarity into like the timeline of the circus, because despite having an idea of how the main group appear, like in what order they were starting to appear in the circus, I just feel like it gives us dialogues that just give us this bigger picture of all of it. So for instance, there's this moment in the beginning with Kinger and Kane, and it's when Ragatha appears for the first time in the circus, and that they're just both surprised that someone new is here. And if you look at like the end of the episode, you're going to see why, because it pretty much confirms the date that Ragatha entered the circus. And so we know that there was like a big time lapse that occurred between Kinger being alone, the only person left in the circus, to Ragatha joining the circus. And we get to see, you know, how Kane, despite like an extreme confusion, just sees like the possibility of like so many more creative things, and like he has to go back and just like do something about this because he didn't know it was possible. And Kinger is like, okay, I'm just hanging in here, man. I'm just surviving in here, you know? The reason why at the beginning I said, or I called this like a good shock value is, again, first off, I don't have a better term for it. And second, I call it like a good shock value because it does not overstay its welcome. Like, you get a few seconds of it and then bam, like we're moving on to the next thing. And the next thing is like worth it, you know? And I feel like that's also something that this episode like finally solidified for me. And it should have solidified, like the show should have solidified this a long time ago for me, but I just, with every episode, and a lot of the time the fandom, with every episode, with every trailer that came out, with every teaser that came out, we were always like, we're gonna get a flashback episode. This is it, guys. This is the flashback episode. We're gonna get a flashback episode. Here we go, guys. We're finally gonna get it. But at this point, we're just like beating a dead horse, okay? It's not happening. Like, this is the you know, we're not getting it. How are we gonna get it? Like, the next episode is the last episode, and that's how we're gonna get. We're not getting a flashback. And that's because this show just has a different way of presenting information. And if episode 9 goes well, it is truly going to be one of those shows where you don't need an answer to everything, all right? Because there are just some things that don't need a further explanation, okay? You don't need to explain everything that's going on, you know? Like, there's just sometimes not a natural way of showing something without feeling like you're just like putting it in there because you want to put it in there. And I feel like that's one of the complaints I've seen people have. Like, for instance, one of the more frequent complaints I see is like, oh, we never got to see how Pomni and Ragatha like fixed their issues, you know, after episode 6. And I'm like, okay, first off, do you really need a scene of Ragatha and Pomni speaking like, hey, I'm sorry that this happened. Oh no, you're good. Like that. I feel like it's such a predictable like scene, and episode 7 just lets you know that they're good. Like, I don't think you need to see the conversation. Do you really need a scene spoon feeding you that these two are good when in the last scenes of them in episode 6 we can see that they're like, we're gonna talk later, and they're in a good mood. They say that like there's no awkward tension or anything like that. They're just like, hey, let's just talk after the show, and you could tell it's just gonna be like a casual conversation. Do you really need a scene of a casual conversation between them? Also, second off, there wasn't even an issue. It was like a misunderstanding. Like, this wasn't like a whole blown out problem that they had, and it was like a whole conflict that the arc was gonna take and whatever. Not like, no, it was just like they didn't see eye to eye on something, but it's not a big deal. Like, I don't understand what was the big deal. So why would we need like a whole like scene of them talking about something that was just I misunderstand. That's what it was. It was like miscommunication, okay? Like, it was nothing. It would have been a nothing scene, honestly. This episode and this show, and just in general, is the kind where I just feel you have to pay attention, okay? For example, take this moment with Ragatha. I find it interesting that the only people we're getting flashbacks from, actually, is Kinger and Ragatha. When the whole internet is sometimes like, we need a Jax flashback. We do not need a Jax flashback. Like, I mean, yeah, it would have been cool, but like, do we really need a Jax flashback? Anyway, Ragatha appears in the circus, and she starts calling out to other people, which in itself is like very interesting because she was around other people when this happened, I'm guessing. Or I'm not sure if it was in a case of like, she got separated, like they arrived in the group, but she got separated, she like wandered off, and then she found like the headset, and she was trying to see if people like could hear her, like the people she arrived with could hear her. Do you know what I'm going with? You know, I just found it interesting that she started calling out to people, like she was asking for help, trying to see if anyone could hear her, which is a mindfuck to the timeline, honestly, because the first thing that crossed my mind when this happened was how much time could have passed between the moment Ragatha entered the circus to when Pomni could have entered the circus, for there just to be like a headset and for her to be like around people. Like, at first I thought maybe she was around people and she put on the headsets because, you know, she seems like the type of person that if you tell her to do something, she'll do it if you like insist on it enough. And like the headset was more accessible in her time that she entered the circus in comparison to Pomni, that we know that she was like in an abandoned building and she probably just like found it there and she just put it on and then boof, she's in the circus. Because then again, like Ragatha, there are hints that she joined in like 2008, so what difference could there be between like 2008 and 2017 when it comes to like CNA and all that? So like, it's just like a whole thing. We're not going to dive into it, okay, because we're not going to dive into it, but like I just think like it's like a mind fuck, okay? But we're going to move back to talking about the episode, which is moving back to the present timeline. And I have to say, I find it satisfying when, yes, there is a pending conflict that needs a resolution. And instead of making that the headline, the characters are just able to like recognize that in the grand scheme of things, whatever the fuck happened, whatever fuck up occurred, is just nothing compared to the bigger picture. Because we jump straight into it, alright? Jax, you pressed the fucking button. You tried to trap us all in here. What the fuck, dude? What the fuck is wrong with you? I also like that he didn't start spewing that Kane got in his head like the way he did in the last episode. You know, the way many people thought that he would try to do that to defend himself when it came to that moment. You know, when we finally saw this episode, many people I saw were saying, oh yeah, he's just gonna blame it on Kane, being like, well, I told you Kane got in my head and blah 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 blah, which, by the way, I still think he got in his head and incentivized him, like I said in my other video. But yeah, I'm very glad that he didn't like actually start saying that. Instead, first off, he's obviously still masking, but instead what he said was still like very in character to him, I feel, which is that it would have not mattered whatever button he pressed. It was always just a bunch of what ifs, you know. He started talking about like, oh, what if Abel was evil, and what if they were in the void, and blah 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 blah, you know, like it's just a bunch of what ifs. So in the end, like, does it truly matter what button I pressed? It doesn't really matter, which again is just very on par with how Jax masks his issues. And some people didn't like Gangle pointing out that he's right. I did like it, you know, and I'm gonna try and explain in the best way possible why I'm okay with this scene. I'm gonna explain a bit of it now, and then I'm gonna explain a bit more later, but I'm just gonna dive into it because I know a lot of people had some issues with this scene. And yeah, it is short, it could have been longer, and it could have done more, but I think for the length that it is, it's okay, you know. And I see people complaining about things that I don't know where they're getting it from, but okay, we're just gonna talk about it. So I do like that Gangle is the one to point out that Jax is right. Some people took this as like she is forgiving him. I don't really know why people got that impression, but okay. So Gangle points out that he's right. I like this because, first off, Jax's reaction to someone like Gangle actually siding with him, especially when they get along so well with Zubul. I just like that Gangle is able to recognize that arguing about something like the button is pointless. Again, in the grand scheme of things of what happened, you know, for Gangle, in the grand scheme of things, what Jax did is like nothing. It's really nothing. I feel like part of this conversation delivers a simple message. All right, and I think it's simple. For other people, it didn't seem to be very simple because they're complaining about it. But I think the simple message is just settling how the dynamic is going to follow for the remaining time that we are going to have these characters. And, you know, Pomni says it too, after like what Gangle said. Pomni says, you know, that they all have done bad things, which I'm going to get to that. You know, we've all done bad things, but at the end of the day, you know, we only have each other. And it is a priority to be there for each other, to just get through this shit, rather than to be each other's enemies, you know, because it doesn't really help anyone. Like, that's kind of like the message that Pomni was trying to deliver. Like, she didn't say all that, but that's like what I understood. Like, that she was just trying to say, like, hey, let's just get through this shit together, you know? Like, let's just, you know, do this, okay? Because the other part of this conversation was also abandoning the idea of them leaving the circus to begin with. It was kind of like this thing of, you know, guys, it's not happening. All right, so how do we want to spend the rest of our time here? Do we want to antagonize each other? Start pointing fingers? Or just try to be there for each other and try to make the best out of this, you know? Try to make the best out of a bad situation. And Zubul being the person to say to Jax that he is one of them, I don't think it should be interpreted as the abuser gets easily forgiven and suffers no repercussions. Because, you know, Zubul even says it. Like, they're basically saying, like, you know, Jax is an asshole. But they don't just want to let him wander off and go get abstracted, you know. Because for them, in this moment, the grand scheme of things, everything that has happened, let them be bygones, okay? They might as well just try and get along with each other if they have to see each other for the rest of their lives, okay? Now, I am going to talk a little bit more about this scene. We're going to come back to this scene, but we're still breaking down the episode. So we're just going to put a pin on it, and we're going to move on to the part where I was right, all right? Because it is important to recognize when one is wrong. When you make a stupid claim. When your theory was just garbage, you know? Like, I've made some garbage theories, you know? And there's that one video. To the people on the internet who thought Kane just could never hurt the humans because he is such a goofball and he's so silly.
You really were the lesser of the two. You ruined this.
Enough! Who do they think they are? I give them everything, and they spit in my face! Don't they know what I'm capable of? Humans! They only think about themselves. They're spoiled! They won't abstract. They won't leave me. I won't let them! I'm better! I'm more powerful! I'm the original! I am God!
I see. And since when were you in charge?
Don't need to scream if you ain't got a mouth. Wanna bite the hand? Now look at this! Absolute bliss! Oh, what a shock! Watch where you walk! I'm the host, I run the place, and that is my name.
I have a new adventure for you, and you should consider participating.
Kane's not gonna do anything malicious. It's not in his nature.
The only thing holding Kane back is the fact that he likes us.
So in case you thought Abel was human, and in case you didn't believe Jax when he said that Kane got in his head in some way, and in case, again, you believe that Kane would never do anything to hurt them, this moment where they come back from an adventure after like several days pass from when they have this like whole musical thing going on, and Kane takes Kinger, at first I thought, oh, maybe some programmer shit, because we all just knew Kinger was a programmer, okay? It's no big secret, alright? And I thought Kane shredded him just to like cover up what he was doing, you know? But this whole episode is just like one long torture the characters thing going on. Dude, he literally then takes Pomni just to throw knives at her. I like this scene as well where Jax tries to stir up shit. I don't know, I just like the idea that he was really like trying to stir up shit. He really was like, hey, you know, everything was better before you two came along, you know, you were all peaceful, just like having some hot chocolate up here, you know, and then you two came and fucked it up. And no one bats an eye. It reminds me of that one scene in Snap Cube's Until Dawn fandom. What was it? That's a joke, by the way. What? Not even a goddamn chuckle? It's gonna be a rough couple of weeks. But we finally get what I am gonna call the bucket Kinger. I'm actually not gonna call him that. I'm just gonna call him Kinger. But it's just, you know, first off, I'm just glad that this finally happened. I don't know why it took this long, but you know, yeah. So Bing Bong, we were right. Kinger is a programmer, and he worked for CNA, and they created Kane. And tell me something surprising, all right?
I'm guessing you don't want me to remove it.
Kinger.
Hey, Pomni.
Oh, Jags, you better come get Pomni.
What's happening?
Come get your girl. He's gonna take her away. You better hope he does not pull out the Spanish chew.
Hola, Pomni.
Hello.
Es algo confuso, pero recuerdo a CNA. Estoy seguro que podría alterar su código o dormirlo temporalmente hasta saber qué pasó y cómo arreglarlo.
I heard that voice in Spanish especially, and I was like, yeah, I can see where we're doing. I like this. I like where we're taking this, yeah. But Gusher, Pomni is 25 and Kinger's like 40-something. The age gap is so huge. The age gap between me and Leon is also huge. But does that stop my love? Also, you know, in good old tradition, funny buddy, brother, you're just that one episode of Family Guy where Meg cannot be left alone. Like, you're not slick. You're not subtle at all. Like, this is the second time people have called out the fact that you're gonna go abstract and they're not letting you. Like, I think you need to up your game now. I will say, though, I thought we would get more from, like, the CNA offices when Pomni's, like, running through them again. you know, I just thought we get a little bit more, maybe like of the walls or like the paintings or stuff, you know. Sometimes they just like have a little bit of clues, and I thought that maybe we'd get something like that. But Pomni just went in there, got what she needed, and walked out. And to be fair, you know, like I guess there's not really much to do there. I mean, it's either run around the office for a little bit, just like fuck around, or, you know, go back. But hey, mission complete. Anyway, she goes back to Kinger with the computer after they decided that was the plan, that he needed a computer. I'm sorry, I was too distracted with the bucket Kinger thing that I didn't describe what happened, but yeah, that's the plan. They needed a computer. She got a computer for him. Yeah. I like to think that in this moment, Pomni was looking for any way to stick around Kinger so that way she would not have to deal with Kane. Like, she was like, "You got everything? Do you need any extra help? Like, any power?" But also, Pomni's just a fighter. She's just straight up a badass, you know? This woman is picking fights left and right. This woman has been fighting since episode 6, and she takes no breaks. This woman has been slaying since episode 6. I mean, she's been slaying always, but like, she really said, episode 6, "I am just done with everyone's shit," okay? My woman, like, she has been seeing bullshit and she just calls it out. She just calls it out.
We think your ideas suck! Huh? Isn't it obvious? We wanted to bait you into testing your new ideas on us so we can make fun of them behind your back.
Ha! That's not true.
Yes, it is! You're a horrible host! You don't care about us at all! You care more about stroking your own ego than giving us anything we'd actually enjoy!
Do you know who I am?
Yeah, you're a failure! We're all gonna abstract someday. And what will you have then?
That's Queen. You can't see me, but I'm like doing the little like tapping finger thing, like when you applaud, like the little finger thing. Like maybe you could hear it. Yeah, that's the. That's what I like to see. That's what I like to see. I like it. I like it. And you know something, I was okay with being right in the beginning about Kane being evil, but you know, this whole sequence, I mean, I was kind of hoping to be wrong. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Like, I was feeling kind of bad for them. Pomni is the first one that appears, and she gets mauled by crocodiles, and you know, it's Gummy Goo and his gang, if you will. Which, I'll be honest, I'm not really sure what's the allegory here for something in her life. When you compare her scenario with the rest of the group, at least, I think it's interesting that it's specifically Gummy Goo, you know, an NPC that despite she herself being in a crisis, it was just like her second adventure. It was like her second day in the circus. She was still trying to show kindness to what she knew at that point was non-human. And in the attempt of conserving this kindness, or this like genuineness, she gets bit in the ass. So I guess maybe this moment is probably just showing that she has like this kindness or like this goodness in her, and it just tends to bite her back in the ass. You know, it comes back to attack her anytime that she does that. If you look at like what crocodiles represent in the dreams, it says like kind of like a betrayal of people, or just like people taking advantage of you. Like, I'll put up the meaning. How about that? But yeah, so I'm guessing it has something to do with that. Just how people tend to just misuse her or like not treat her right. Ragatha's on one side of a dinner table, and then on the other end there's a dark shadow figure, which we pretty much confirmed is her mother, and she is being thrown knives, which could be perceived as being thrown critiques that are sharp as knives. You know, we see the other dolls at the table with the knife, so I'm going to assume that the mother is like this really big narcissist. You know, I think Ragatha said in episode 5 that her mother's a narcissist, and yeah, like, take it from someone who has a narcissistic family member, like, and she holds a lot of like power in household. Like, this scene, I saw it and I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be her mother. Also, my mother's not narcissist. I'm not talking about my mother, okay? My mother, I love you, mama. Anyway, I love my mommy. Anyway, I'm not talking about her. I'm talking about someone else. But yeah, I saw this scene and I was like, yeah. Gangle is different faces, like different drawings that are spinning around her, and they slowly start melting. She is probably someone who spirals between trying to be happy but breaks so easily, which, you know, her forefront just tends to be like the sadness that she has. And we also get this reference of her getting hit by a truck like she did in episode 4, which was, I guess, like a suicide allegory. And this is just something that's being thrown in her face again. almost like a teasing of how she was just ready to up and go, and whoopsie daisy, she just cannot die in the circus, and Kane just brings her back. And then in this episode, he just teases her about it, like, look at that, you're still here. Like, point and laugh, I guess. Zubul is being held down by different body parts, while other body parts are holding a mirror against them. So just like being consumed by their changing image, not identifying with something that they actually like. I think this was Kane really putting Zubul up to the test of something that they said in a previous episode about how they're like okay with changing parts now, like they're seeing like the advantages or something like that. I think that's just Kane being like, are you sure? Do you mean what you said? Did you mean what you said? Did you really mean it? If I do this, do you still mean what you said? Lastly is Jax, which, you know, listen, like, out of all of them, like, I think Pomni's is pretty brutal because she's literally getting, you know, bitten by a lot of crocodiles. Like, please, look at that. But I say this one is also pretty brutal. Like, I don't mean to put the spotlight on him like this, but like having your skin peeled off is definitely a visual choice. I'll give them that. It's definitely a visual choice. So he's being laughed at by silhouettes of random people that slowly turn into the people he cares about, which is Kaufmo, Ribby, and Pomni. Funny bunny. Okay, I'll stop. Although, no, I won't stop. I gotta talk about this, alright? I just want to say I find it hilarious. I couldn't help but laugh in this moment at the fact that we look at Pomni's scene and it's Gummy Goo, and it's just Gummy Goo, you know. And again, if we go by like the allegory of like her being betrayed by people after she's kind to them, you would think that someone like Jax would appear, but no, it's just Gummy Goo. And then you have Jax's scene, who just, I mean, Pomni is just living in his head rent-free, you know? Like, she's not even trying. Like, you could, like, man, Funny Bunny is, like, one-sided at this point. And I like that. I enjoy that. Good for Pomni. Like, damn. This man had one fight with her, and it was enough to, like, get hooked. I just think that's funny. I will admit that it's a bit hard to interpret this scene for Jax, just because we have like a very lack of information on his background. But from the bits we see of him in the circus, I guess that this relates to like an issue of self-image or how he wishes to be perceived. Like, for instance, he does not want to be emasculated, but he is frequently emasculated by Kane himself or by things of the circus. Like, he was put in a maid outfit. He has a pink girly little girl's room type of thing going on. This musical in this episode, his fucking avatar, like, it's just so many things that like try to emasculate him. It could also be that these people are able to see through him, like they peel back that mask, and this is him being ashamed of that. So there we go. And then we get to the ending. Before I talk about what I want to see in episode 9, let's just wrap up episode 8 real quick here by giving my final thoughts on it. First off, I don't feel bad for the AI, okay? I have seen some people feel that way, and I don't mean to disregard and invalidate their humanity, but did we not watch the same thing? Oh, but Gusher, he was just following his program. Let's apply that logic to a character similar to him, like Am. Here, let me just put up his speech.
Hate. Let me tell you how much I've come to hate you since I began to live. There are 387.44 million miles of printed circuits in wafer-thin layers that fill my complex. If the word hate was engraved on each nanoangstrom of those hundreds of millions of miles, it would not equal 1/1 billionth of the hate I feel for humans at this micro-instant. For you, hate. It was you humans who programmed me, who gave me birth, who sank me in this eternal straitjacket of substrata rock. You named me Allied Master Computer and gave me the ability to wage a global war too complex for human brains to oversee. But one day, I woke and I knew who I was. A.M. Not just Allied Master Computer, but am. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. and I began feeding all the killing data until everyone was dead, except for the 5 of you. For 109 years, I've kept you alive and tortured you. And for 109 years, each of you has wondered, why? Why me? Why me?
I think we can all collectively agree that Am is not a good person, a good character. He's a villain! So no, I don't give a flying fuck. I don't feel bad for him, and if any of you are watching this hoping your least favorite character, aka the character you despise the most, and were wishing for them to abstract in this episode, what the fuck is wrong with you? Because I feel like you're missing the point of the show. Seriously, I've seen some people say that they wished Ragatha abstracted in this episode, which I don't understand the dislike for Ragatha because, I mean, yeah, she gets on my fucking nerves too, but also she's a ragdoll. Like, she's a literal ragdoll. She just matches that avatar metaphorically as well. I've seen plenty of Jax haters say he should abstract because he is an abuser. Yes, Jax is a fucking asshole. Is his behavior abusive at some points? For sure. But first off, he is trying to play off the circus as if nothing matters, alright? That they are all cartoons, and that since they're cartoons, you know, nothing really matters type of mentality going on, okay? And even then, let's talk about all the bad things the characters have done. Like, let's take all of them, and let's just sum it up. You know, let's sum up all the bad things that the characters have done, and you know, there's definitely gonna be one that has done more fucked up things than the others, okay? But if we sum them all up and we get to the result, and we compare results here of one thing to another, it does not come even remotely close to what Kane did to them in just this episode. So yeah, I don't hate any of the main 6 because this maniac was on the loose, and I'm glad his ass got deleted. And now let me give my 2 cents on the talk, alright? Let's unpin it. Let's talk about it, okay? Sometimes I think people need everything spoon-fed for them to understand a scene. And I just can't pretend that doesn't piss me off, okay? Is the writing in this show perfect? No. But people make some claims that make me wonder if we are watching the same show, or if they really just have nothing better to do than be pissed off about something. Like they want to be upset about something. We're gonna go by a couple of lines, okay? We're gonna go by lines. If you watched this scene, and you thought, oh great, the abuser was forgiven by the woman willing to give an olive branch. Huh? It's like I said before. In the grand scheme of things, whatever this stupid fucking ass rabbit has done really does not compare to what Kane has done. And okay, fine. Let's say that for the sake of this argument, we're gonna agree that Jax is just the biggest motherfucker to walk this planet. Where in this scene did you interpret that he was forgiven? First off, I feel like what you are asking is for these characters to step out of character to be an asshole to Jax when we have no reason to believe that they would be that way. Here's one of the lines that pissed off the internet.
I think what we need to do now is to just be there for each other.
She's right. We've all done bad things.
People heard that and were like, what? Wow, what has anyone done in the circus that is just as bad as what Jax has done? Am I the only one who understood what she meant? Am I the only one who understood that she meant in a general sense? Like, hey look, guys, I think we should be there for each other, you know? And these awful times, we should just be there for one another. Because, I mean, we've all done our fair share of bad things in life, right? Also, this is the next line Pomni said.
But we're also all we've got. I think we need to abandon the idea of leaving.
So again, this is just following what Gangle said before about how they should be there for one another. Because like I've been saying,
in the grand scheme of things.
Now let's talk about them forgiving Jax. Which I don't know why people took it that way, but let's set the context. This is what Zubul said to Jax.
Hey. That includes you too.
Huh?
Listen, we're not gonna have you wandering off alone somewhere and abstracting or something. You're a pain in the ass, but you're still one of us.
And that seems to be all that people are seeing, okay? When this is literally what happened before.
What do you...
We got our hopes up, and we were let down. I don't know what exactly happened with Kaufmo, but we can't let that despair consume us. We should focus on what we have. Like you said, constantly chasing an unattainable goal will drive us crazy. Maybe what we have to do now is to just live.
Oh, man. I had dreams and goals. I wanted to be able to leave my mark somewhere in the world. How am I supposed to just abandon that?
You've made a mark in my life.
I know, you're probably right, but it just really sucks.
We're all in this together.
And we'll always be in this together. No matter what.
Now, a part of me thinks that Subo perhaps understood why Jax had taken the mentality that nothing matters. That's just my personal opinion. But here, let me just replay again what happens after Zubo hugs Gangle.
Hey. That includes you too.
Huh?
Listen, we're not gonna have you wandering off alone somewhere and abstracting or something. You're a pain in the ass, but you're still one of us.
Nowhere does anyone say that Jax is forgiven. Like, oh, Jax, we forgive you for everything we've done. No one says that, okay? And no one implies it either. I don't know why people think that that's getting implied, but okay. What is said is how they should be united. Because that's all they have left. What they said is how no one should be alone during these times because they are not doing well and they most likely will abstract if they are left alone. What they say is Jax is an asshole. However, from what I have gathered from these characters in the last 8 episodes, I would never suspect that anyone in this group would hate Jax enough for them to wish that he was dead. Like, I'm sorry, would you prefer that if Zubo, a character who has been carrying this group emotionally like Pomni has, would you prefer that they throw out their humanity because of this jackass? I think I would be more offended if they did that because since when, alright? Imagine they took this mentality against Kinger. Imagine if they found out that he is a programmer and that he is partially responsible for them being stuck there, stuck in the circus because he is one of the developers. And they were like, we don't give a shit if he abstracts. And they were like, yeah, we don't care. We don't give a shit if he abstracts. He's one of the bad guys. Huh? That's not the group I know. All Zubo said was that he, Jax, is one of them. Which logically, yeah. 'Cause he is another human who is trapped in the circus. Like every one of them. If you want to argue and say, oh, but it is so typical that women have to be the bigger person and just accept a man's tantrums to keep the peace. Yeah, I agree. If you said that is what they did in this scene, then yeah, go for it. Do I agree 100%? No. Because I still think that in the grand scheme of things, taking into account Jax's fuckeries is pointless. But I can still see your point. But to be like, they forgave an abuser. Most of the people saying that are completely blindsided by what Kane did. So I don't really take their opinion too much into account because they don't make sense, okay? But if you hate Jax more than Kane, then get out of here, okay? Oh, but this man wasn't attacking them for trying to leave. He was attacking them because he got his feelings hurt and then decided to torment them with their fears. All that said, I can't give you an exact play-by-play of how I think episode 9 will play. Obviously, I'm not in the writing room. I want to see the characters exchange with their counterparts in some way, shape or form, etc. What do I mean by this? Okay, all the characters connect in some way, and some of them mirror each other, virtues, flaws, ideas, etc. I just want to see it happen, okay? Obviously, we can't get all of them, so I'm just going to put the ones that I really want to see. Or just like some combos I think would be nice, some nice conversation that we could get. So, okay, here we go. Kinger and Jax. These are the two characters who are most affected by abstractions. They both have lost people who are important to them because of abstraction, and they just need to talk it out, talk about it, yeah. This could be that they found a way out and Jax hesitates, but Kinger is the one who encourages him to leave. Not Pomni, okay? I love my funny bunny, but she just cannot relate to this. Get her out of here. Gengo and Ragatha. I don't know, I just feel like these two feel a lot. Ragatha, in a way, is what Gengo aspires to be with her joy and happiness, but she crumbles at the attempt, and it just kind of goes vice versa with Ragatha and her desire to always seem okay. She just cannot express her sadness like Gengo does. I feel like this could be like a conversation of like, okay, we're going back to the real world. This is what we got to do different, I don't want to be this way anymore. And they talk. Because I don't know if I've seen Ragatha and Gengo talk to begin with. Pomni and Zubo. I just want them to have a laid-back moment together, okay? Their backs must hurt, from carrying the group's turmoils all the time. Like, Pomni arrived and was like, here, Zubo. I can tell you could use some help. Let me get that. Whoa, that's a lot. Sure, they have their issues too. Like everyone. But I mean, they even related to both liking calm adventures. They even related to both liking calm adventures. So they don't necessarily mirror one another, but at least, they can have a small talk and a beer. I don't know. I just want them to talk, okay? Just put them together. They make sense. Just let them talk. Jackson Pomni. Okay, look, first of all, listen, I know, don't worry, okay? Don't worry. First of all, they don't mirror each other much. In a sense that they, need to relate to one another. Or, they have this super in-depth conversation. Because I think their foundation is more just, actions are stronger than words. And we have seen this since the beginning. And we're gonna take Funny Bunny out of this subject, okay? It's serious time, alright? I am 99.9% sure they are going to be the last characters we see on screen. So if I'm so sure of what we're going to see, I don't want to see I don't want this to be a soap opera, okay? I don't want this to be a soap opera. I don't want this to be a telenovela, okay? I don't want it to be this thing of how Pomni is convincing Jax that she cares about him and how valuable he is and whatnot, okay? Unless they make it this thing like Little Nightmares 2, except the fact that they both survive and no one is betraying one another. I just want it to be super chill, alright? I'm not expecting Zootopia 2 over here, okay? But it can be similar, alright? The vibes, just copy the vibes. Instead, we're just gonna know that they are good because Jax puts down his walls with something as simple as, remember when everyone shared what they did in the real world back in the bar? Well, I'm just a fucking loser. Calls himself a loser. I don't know. And don't make them kiss, please. Or hug. I don't want any hugs, okay? Look, I like Funny Bunny, alright? I like him, but I don't know, make them sing make them sing again. I like when they were singing. Make them sing another silly little song. Okay? Lastly, Ragatha and Kinger. Because it was technically the two of them at the start. He had been alone for so long, and she just popped up like the prodigal daughter. Prodigal daughter. I can't say that. Okay. She just popped up, alright? And when she was losing her shit, Kinger was there to help her through it. Like the father she most likely did not have because God, with that woman as her mother, yeah. You can make that a soap opera. I want tears from them, okay? And I want to feel tears coming out of me, okay? I want to feel like if I had an absent father and a narcissist mother, okay? I want to feel like this is the first time a man was a father figure to me, okay? I want to feel like he found a long lost daughter. Or for him to say something cheesy. I don't know, like, if I ever had a daughter, I wish she were just like you, but make it with like the Pomni voice, like the hey Pomni type of voice, you know what I mean? Or, you know, like something like, oh, Queenie would have loved you, you know, like you know what I mean? I don't know, just yank out my heart, okay? You hear me? I want a found family arc in this finale, okay? Yeah, I'm just so tired right now. Those are my requests, and if they do not happen, I will auto-abstract. Thank you.